You're kidding me, right? My voice barely registers above the hum of the dishwasher and the echo of footsteps on the linoleum. Dad doesn't glance up from his phone. Mom's already in the hallway, half dressed for work, shouting for my sister to grab her laptop. It's a Thursday morning in late May, the end of my senior year in Decatur, Illinois, and the kitchen feels colder than it ever has. On the counter, sandwiched between an old grocery list and my untouched toast, sits the envelope I thought was untouchable. College savings account. Statement enclosed. The blue ink is faded, corners bent. I know that font, those account numbers, better than my own social security number. Years of babysitting, paper routes, odd jobs, and every $20 Dad could spare from the plant went into that fund. Or so I always believed. Mom says, like she's reporting the weather, we needed it for Lily's car. She pauses by the door, looking past me, keys jangling in her hand. She's 18 now. She needs to get around for her projects. You took everything? I keep my tone flat. If I let my voice crack, I'll never stop. All of it? You'll figure it out, Mark, Dad mutters, not even pretending to listen. State schools aren't so bad. You're good with scholarships. You'll make us proud. I stare at them. For a second, I'm 12 again, tall for my age, proud of my first place science fair ribbon, parents grinning for the camera. That was before Dad's layoffs and Mom's all-night waitressing shifts, before the fun became the quiet promise that kept us going. I want to ask what changed, but I already know. Family math, Lily's birthday, some new plan I was never part of. My sister waltzes through, hair curled, new iPhone in hand, keys to a brand new Tesla Model 3 twirling on her finger. Can I go? She asks, barely glancing at me. Dad mumbles approval. Mom nods. Nobody looks at the empty spot where my college dreams sat just yesterday. My name is Mark Davis. I'm 22 now, but that morning replays in my mind with surgical clarity. I grew up in a house where nothing was ever guaranteed except what you earned. I stacked every spare dollar from age 12, skipping field trips for overtime at the library, mowing lawns after football practice, fixing neighbors' routers for Starbucks cards. The college fund was my North Star. I never touched it. Neither, I thought, would they. But hope isn't as solid as it feels. Sometimes it's gone before you see the gap. I had plans. Berkeley, maybe, if the numbers worked out. Stanford, if the stars aligned. 4 years of science competitions, debate tournaments, late-night hackathons, a binder stuffed with teacher recommendations. When I pictured my future, it was always blue skies over a California campus, not the flat, humid grid of Decatur. But the year I needed it most, the fund vanished. No kitchen table talk, no late-night confession, not even a note. Just an envelope and a half-hearted explanation about family needs. Lily got a Tesla, leased, but with a big red bow for her YouTube channel. She started vlogging about women in tech and filming unboxings in our driveway. Mom managed her calendar, Dad answered brand emails, dinner conversations, once about my SAT prep or coding projects, now circled Lily's subscriber count and Instagram engagement. Anytime I mentioned college, Dad changed the subject, Mom busied herself with dishes, and Lily filmed another girl boss story in the living room. That first summer after the fund was gone, I learned to keep my questions, and my anger, to myself. I picked University of Illinois, local, in-state tuition. No one congratulated me, but no one objected either. I started classes in electrical engineering, worked late nights in the university IT department, fixed printers for professors who forgot their own passwords. My only luxury was instant coffee. On the outside, I was surviving. On the inside, I made a silent promise. I'd never let anyone control my future again. By sophomore year, I had 2 jobs, the IT desk and a maintenance gig patching up aging dorm buildings for the facilities department. The pay was garbage, but it gave me a reason to say no to family barbecues, Lily's endless influencer events, and the slow drip resentment I felt every time I saw the Tesla charging in our driveway. My friends at school wondered why I never joined for Friday beers, never splurged on anything more than a used textbook. I told them I was saving for graduate school. The truth, I was saving for escape. Everything changed in my junior year, the night the city's energy audit director spoke in my sustainable design class. He was looking for cheap labor, students willing to crawl through attics and basements, document every blown fuse and leaky pipe in old houses across Macon County. The pay was okay. The real value was access to public records, legal filings, and the city's nervous system. I got the job. The work was grimy, sometimes dangerous, and always exhausting. But it gave me a taste of something I'd never had: leverage. I learned to read property tax ledgers, spot unpaid liens, and connect the dots between a stack of unopened mail and an impending disaster. I met city lawyers, accountants, and older engineers who took pity on the broke kid who never said no to overtime. Sometimes, on those late nights back at my off-campus studio, I'd think about what that fund was supposed to be. I remembered Mom crying when the plant cut Dad's hours, the pride in his voice when he dropped $100 into my account after a double shift. I remembered Lily sneaking into my room, begging for help with algebra, promising to pay me back with movie passes. I'd done everything right, or so I thought. I tried to forgive them. I tried to be the older brother who let things slide, who smiled for group photos and showed up for birthdays. But every time I saw Lily's Tesla parked under the basketball hoop I hung with Dad when I was 15, every time Mom shared another viral post about Lily's entrepreneur journey, the bitterness rose like bile. I stopped coming home for holidays. I worked more shifts. I poured everything I had into school and my job, promising myself that someday I'd be free. The spring of my senior year, I got promoted to field auditor for the city's home efficiency program. It meant real responsibility and access to the city's property delinquency database. One rainy Tuesday, while logging boiler serials, I stumbled on an address that stopped my heart: our house, 442 South Franklin Avenue, flagged as high-risk tax arrears. At first I thought it was a glitch, but I dug deeper, scrolling through PDFs on the city system, tax bills, overdue mortgage statements, legal notices marked unopened, $7,000 in back taxes, 6 months overdue on the mortgage, water bill flagged for service termination. I remembered Mom tossing piles of mail in the recycling, Dad saying the system was rigged. I'd believed them. I shouldn't have. That night, instead of heading to my shift, I sat in a 24-hour diner across from my old city lawyer contact, a guy named Patterson who liked my work ethic and owed me for fixing his daughter's MacBook. Over lukewarm coffee, I explained the mess. "Is there a way to stop the foreclosure without them knowing?" I asked. Patterson whistled. "Maybe. If you can clear the debt, you could put the title in a trust or LLC. You'll need documentation and cash. It won't be pretty." I spent the next week pulling together every cent I had: 2 years of savings, what was left from scholarships, a short-term loan from the city's Future Engineers program. I set up a consulting LLC, drew up the paperwork, and begged a professor for a bridge loan, using my capstone project as collateral. Every night, while Lily live-streamed from the living room and my parents bragged about her partnerships, I filled out forms and checked legal templates on my cracked phone. 2 weeks before graduation, the paperwork cleared. Patterson called at midnight. "You're officially the manager on the trust, Mark. Mortgage is in your name. The county's sending the deed." I didn't celebrate. I didn't even sleep. I just filed the confirmation email and went back to reviewing my finals schedule. Finals week was a haze of all-nighters, bad coffee, and panic attacks. I fielded notices from the mortgage company, filed tax documents for the LLC, kept my grades up, and ignored family group texts. Lily's graduation vlog hit 20,000 views. She unboxed a ring light and called me her super nerd brother. I didn't watch it twice. Commencement day was muggy, thunderstorms brewing on the horizon. Mom insisted on family pictures by the maple in our front yard. Lily whined about her makeup melting. Dad kept checking his phone, ignoring the official letter from the county wedged in the mailbox. I tucked it into my pocket, heart pounding. Lunch was awkward. Eggs, burnt toast, fake laughter, small talk about internships and future plans. I waited until we got home, then dropped the folder on the living room table. "I took over the house," I said. "Paid the debt. Lease terms are there. Your tenants. Market rate. The silence was suffocating. Lily's phone was still recording. Mom's hands shook. Dad's face turned hard. After all we did for you? He muttered. I kept my voice level. You emptied my college fund. Didn't even warn me. There was no fight, no apology. I left the folder on the table and went upstairs to pack. 3 months later, the lease expired. My parents moved to a rented duplex across town. Lily traded the Tesla for a used Honda, started vlogging about minimalist living. The house was quiet for the first time since I was a kid. No ring lights, no shouting, just the whir of the fridge and the creak of settling wood. I turned Lily's old room into an office, pulled down the decals, set up a folding desk, lined the shelves with library books and circuit testers. I fixed what I could, let the rest go. The house felt smaller, emptier, but for the first time it was mine. I saw my parents once. Coffee at a diner, small talk, no mention of the past. Lily sent the occasional meme, nothing more. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a kind of peace. Most nights I walked the neighborhood, taking notes on drafty windows and leaky roofs, planning my next audit report. I lived cheap, saved everything, started consulting for energy nonprofits. I applied to grad schools, and the day the acceptance came, I called my old project mentor. You're the toughest kid I ever hired, he said. Go show Chicago what you've got. I packed everything I owned in the trunk of a used Corolla and drove north. My new apartment was a shoebox, but the view was better. City lights instead of backyards, L trains instead of sirens. Grad school was harder than I'd imagined. My classmates vacationed in Europe, talked about trust funds and internships. I just worked. TA shifts, consulting jobs, late nights in the engineering lab. Slowly, I built a reputation. The professor who caught errors others missed. The consultant who never let a contract slip. Clients asked for me by name, and my boss started calling me his quiet insurance policy. Every few months I got a text from Mom, usually a weather report or a photo of Lily's dog. Dad never called. The old house, now rented to a family with 3 kids, stayed standing. I checked the furnace each winter, paid the taxes on time, made sure the gutters didn't clog. The neighborhood hadn't changed, but I had. Sometimes, I wondered about the life I lost, the one with scholarships and blue sky ambitions, dinners with a happy family, no secrets, but that wasn't my story. I'd learned to survive, to set boundaries, to rebuild when no one else would. And if there's a lesson, it's this. You don't always get what you're owed, but you can choose what you'll never give up again. For me, it was respect, earned, sometimes seized, but never surrendered. Grad school in Chicago turns out to be less of a clean slate and more of an endurance test. The city moves fast, buses hissing through slush at dawn, sirens bouncing off glass towers, everyone always late for something. My apartment's 3rd floor, walk up, no elevator, heat that works only when you kick the radiator twice. But the east-facing window floods the tiny kitchen with morning sun, and for the first time in years, I wake up with a sense of my own future. I make friends, slowly, the way people with secrets do, one project partner at a time, a professor who recognizes how early I show up to open the lab. We swap notes over cold pizza, share hacks for cutting costs on textbooks, and laugh about the professors who still haven't learned to use Canvas. I pick up side work, fixing routers, consulting for startups trying to optimize their power usage, rewriting grant proposals for people who promise to pay next semester. Every dollar goes into savings. I won't risk being cornered by money again. My old habits serve me well. I keep track of every receipt, log every hour, review every line of code before I submit. My professors start sending struggling students my way. Ask Mark, he's thorough. I never say no, not because I'm generous, but because saying yes means never being left out. I become the guy who gets things done, quietly, no drama. No one here knows about my family, the house, or the fund. In Chicago, I get to define myself. The consulting gigs start to add up. I meet a project manager at an energy nonprofit who needs someone to audit housing stock in low-income neighborhoods. The pay isn't great, but she trusts me. She lets me shadow meetings with city officials, teaches me how to read a grant application, pulls me into her office for debriefs when projects stall. I keep my head down and learn everything: how to navigate the bureaucracy, how to turn a 2-line email into a signed-off pilot program, how to sell an idea to a room full of people who think you're too young to know anything. In the evenings, I run along the river, headphones blocking out the city, breath fogging in the cold. I think about Decatur less and less, except for the weeks when rent is due or when Lily sends a selfie from her new apartment. I never reply right away, but I always do. I'm not interested in grudges. I'm interested in proof that I can build something stable from scratch. Halfway through my second semester, the nonprofit's lead engineer leaves suddenly, and I get asked to run a neighborhood retrofit pilot. I don't say no, though the job terrifies me. I manage a team of contractors twice my age, coordinate with city inspectors, field angry calls from tenants who think the program is a scam. I double-check paperwork, drive a borrowed van across the city to pick up parts, and spend weekends fixing up broken insulation myself when the budget falls short. One night, after replacing a corroded fuse in a cramped basement, the landlord thanks me with a handshake and a nod. No tip, just gratitude. For the first time, I feel it in my bones. Respect. Not because I demanded it, but because I earned it by refusing to quit. I call Mom the week before my birthday. She talks about Lily's new job, how Dad's health isn't great, how money's tight. I listen, offer to help with bills, knowing she'll say no. After we hang up, I send her a grocery gift card anyway. It's not forgiveness, but it's enough. Spring turns to summer. My thesis research is picked up by a professor who introduces me at a citywide conference on affordable housing. I speak in a packed auditorium, hands shaking so hard I almost dropped the clicker, but my voice holds steady. I talk about energy audits, the quiet shame of growing up in a house with leaky windows, the pride of making a difference where it counts. People take notes. One city official asks for a follow-up meeting. I say yes. Back at my apartment, I pin my conference badge to a corkboard over my desk, a small, silent victory. I'm not loud, not famous, but I'm here. No one gave me a head start. Every bit of progress I made myself. Late one night, I reread the final audit on the Decatur house. The property is stable, tenants happy, taxes paid. It's not home, but it's not a wound either. I send a short message to the family renting it, wishing them a good holiday, and get a thank you note from the kids, drawn in crayon. I tack it to the board next to my badge. A life built from salvage, yes, but still mine. At graduation, I shake hands with professors, pose for a picture I know I'll send to Mom, though Dad's probably not in the frame. My classmates plan summer trips or job interviews with companies whose names I've only seen on glass doors. I take a position with the city's Department of Energy Efficiency, starting the week after graduation. It's not glamour, but it's work that matters, and it comes with insurance, a pension, and a seat at the table where real decisions get made. Chicago feels less intimidating now. The sun rises earlier and I rise with it. I jog the river path, thinking less about what I lost and more about what's next. My own place, maybe, or the grant application I'm reviewing for a startup that reminds me a little too much of Lily. In quiet moments, I walk city blocks, looking up at the skyline, feeling the slow stretch of pride that doesn't need to be broadcast to matter. I'm nobody's secret anymore. I built my own security, my own peace. Whatever comes next, I know I can handle it. And when I think about inheritance, about what you're owed and what you claim, I realize I never wanted a payout. I just wanted proof I could stand alone, and, when it counted, help others do the same. That's the legacy I'm building. One decision, one boundary, one repaired window at a time. Fall settles in, sharp and golden, the city humming with students and commuters and the endless churn of new beginnings. My days at the Department of Energy Efficiency are a blur of spreadsheets, site visits, and policy memos. I become the youngest analyst on my floor, the only one who brings coffee in a thermos from home and eats lunch in the windowless break room with a stack of engineering journals. Some colleagues barely notice me. A few, like Tamika from compliance, become friends. Quiet camaraderie forged over late-night deadlines and mutual complaints about broken office chairs. The city sends me out to review energy retrofits in old apartment buildings. Victorian brownstones with drafty windows and converted warehouses with bad wiring. I walk through echoing hallways, clipboard in hand, inspecting insulation, testing fire alarms, talking to landlords about grants they never knew existed. Every week brings a new problem to solve, a new spreadsheet to balance, a new lesson in patience. Tenants are wary at first. Who trusts a guy barely out of grad school, dressed in thrift store business casual, talking about kilowatt hours and efficiency ratios? But word spreads. I follow through. I come back. I fix what I say I'll fix, even if it means crawling under pipes in a suit. At home, I finally upgrade from my twin bed to a full, splurging on new sheets with my first real paycheck. It's a small luxury, but one that marks a shift. I allow myself more. An occasional night out with friends, a new pair of running shoes, a second-hand bike for city commutes. I still keep receipts in a shoebox, but the fear that used to drive every choice fades a little. Security feels real, earned. I check in with the family renting the Decatur house. They ask if it's okay to paint the bedrooms, send photos of their kids' drawings on the fridge. I say yes, grateful the place is finally full of laughter again. When I visit for repairs over Thanksgiving, the neighbors invite me in for pie, asking about my life in the city. I realize for the first time, I'm not just the kid who left, I'm someone they're proud to know. Work ramps up as winter closes in. We launch a new initiative to replace outdated boilers in senior housing. I take the lead, coordinating with building managers, fielding endless phone calls, troubleshooting on-site when contractors cut corners. The job wears me down, but the victories, an elderly tenant calling to say her apartment is finally warm, a building's heating bill slashed by half, mean more than any praise from my boss. Mom texts sometimes, usually photos of old report cards or math medals she finds while cleaning out their new apartment. Dad doesn't write, but when he does, it's terse updates. Car trouble, weather, the kind of small talk that says, "I'm thinking of you," without having to say it outright. Lily sends me memes, links to her latest DIY projects, news that she's enrolling in a coding boot camp. Our conversations are easy now, light, low stakes. We all know the boundaries, and for once, that feels like relief. As Christmas nears, I take time off to drive downstate. I fix a leaky faucet at the house, hang lights for the renters, stop by my parents' place for a quiet dinner. We don't talk about money or the past. Instead, we eat homemade stew, trade polite questions about work, let the silences be comfortable. On the drive back, the old anxiety doesn't follow me. I realize I can visit without being pulled back into old patterns. I'm no longer responsible for patching their holes. Back in Chicago, I throw myself into a new citywide energy task force. Our team's goal: modernize the housing code, reduce energy waste in the poorest neighborhoods, get more buy-in from city council. Meetings drag late, sometimes ending in shouting matches over budgets and priorities. I learned to speak up, not as the quiet kid in the corner, but as someone who knows what it's like to go cold in winter, who understands the invisible costs families pay when systems fail them. My story, it turns out, is an asset, not a secret. I get nominated for another award, this time by Tamika, who says she's never seen a rookie who can get 3 departments to agree on anything. The recognition feels strange, but good. I accept with a small speech, keeping it short and honest. Energy savings aren't just numbers. They're groceries, medicine, the chance to breathe a little easier. I'm proof that every system can be fixed if you care enough to try. Spring arrives. My job gets busier, but my world opens up. A handful of real friends, an invitation to teach a workshop at the university, a city that feels less and less overwhelming. I don't hide who I am anymore. I talk about Decatur, about my family, about the lessons you learn when the people you trust let you down, and how sometimes forgiveness means simply choosing to keep going. I still walk by the river, sometimes before sunrise, sometimes late at night, watching the city lights flicker and blur on the water. The bitterness is gone. In its place, a quiet pride, not just in survival, but in building something new from broken pieces. I keep a single frame photo on my desk, me and Lily, both about 6, grinning with gap-toothed pride in front of the old house. Every morning it reminds me where I started. Every night it reminds me how far I've come. If I've learned anything, it's this: real respect is earned, sometimes the hard way. Family is complicated. Inheritance isn't always money or property. It's the strength to say no, to build your own rules, to find your own meaning in the mess. And dignity isn't given. It's made step by step, choice by choice, until you look up and realize you're finally, truly home.